Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today on Outer Limitless lights with the Nitecore EDC37. Now before we even get started, thank you very much to the people at Nitecore who did provide this for review. Now getting into this, I have covered a huge number of the Nitecore flashlights in the EDC series, from their flat style, pretty much like your EDC 27 style, to the sort of more round form factors, things like, say, for example, the EDC 31. But today with the EDC 37, it's kind of like right in the middle. It's not exactly your flat form factor, and it's also not exactly round. This is kind of like a new thing for the EDC lineup. Now, this is not going to be a lightweight option. It's also not going to be extremely heavy, so it should be pocketable, but man, this thing is just a beast. As you take a look at the overall construction, it is what we've come to expect from Nitecore, only they've stepped it up a notch. The reflectors on the front here, you can see on the inside, this does exhibit some orange peel. So right away, this is more of a floody style light than a spot, and that's just fine. I have used this quite a bit at this point. I have done quite a bit of field testing at this point. For me personally, I would like a little bit more punch on the spot side of things, but it is absolutely fantastic for its flood capabilities. So I don't want to knock the light. Just for me and my personal preference, I just really love a good throw that goes at distance more than it does wide and broad. So again, that's just a very personal preference type of thing for me. On the front, you can see these glass breakers, and they actually can be removed, which is really cool and unique. That is just, look at how much these protrude down. That's just serious glass breaking capability right there. 4 of these with the ceramic beads, just really aggressive, and you could use that certainly as a non-lethal pommel if you needed to. Although it might be lethal with how much those protrude. It would certainly hurt. If you look at the general construction, just beautifully done. Really cool lines, kind of space age just a little bit, which I like. Some texture for grip, and this is definitely grippy. The machining is absolutely fantastic. And there are some spaces, for example, on the front that are cut out. And as I rotate, you can see that there's space and air underneath. So that's going to help a little bit with just some general heat dissipation up towards the lens. Now, this definitely does get hot. And like most EDC lights and most of these Nitecore flashlights with the Lumen Shield technology, you will have limitations on the burst and on the Lumen Shield, or that high turbo mode. So that is something to consider. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the fact that this does have some reasonable heat dissipation does kind of help. And of course, with the type of output that you see on a light like this being 8,000 pocketable lumens, this can heat up fairly quickly. On the back here, the power button and your Lumen Shield button. So this here is the kind of dual purpose button. Once you get into that, that does allow you to half press for your flood and deep press for the Lumen Shield. You'll notice this does have the Nitecore Rapid Lock mechanical lockout. And I would like to think that, through the course of time and, through some of my testing and through the comments of other people and other reviewers, we've had the influence to now where most of the EDC lights do have the mechanical lockout versus an electronic lockout, and that is sweet. It's super easy, super fast, and you can see right now with it locked out, literally the light is completely locked out, nothing will operate at all, and then sliding that forward at that point, now you can get your operation. So very effective, very simple. Slide it back to lock it out, slide it forward, and you're running. USB Type-C charging port. And this does leverage a 3.6 volt, 8,000 milliamp hour battery, translating to 28.8 watt hours of power. So this does have substantial battery life, and especially if you maintain this. At this point, I charged this once. I've been carrying this for about 2 weeks, and as we press this on, again, just a little half press. I can now half press and work through the modes, but here, 15 lumens. So again, this is the low mode, 15 lumens, but you'll see I'm still at 91% battery. And again, I mean, I have used this a ton. You'll notice that the display does turn off fairly quickly, but not a big deal. And if you're only pressing this button slightly, that comes on, but you can also half press in between the modes. So before you even turn on the light, you can dial in your lumen output. So level 2, 100 lumens, level 3, 400, level 4, 1500, and then back around. It's very simple, very easy, and I like that you can toggle this before you even turn on the light. At 15 lumens, we're looking at 190 hours of runtime, 30 meters of throw, 230 Candela. Little half press, level 2. Level 2 is 100 lumens, 30 hours of runtime, 80 meters of throw, 1,637 Candela. Another half press. This is 400 lumens, 8 hours and 30 minutes of runtime, 115 meters of throw, 3,310 Candela. Another little half press, 1,500 lumens, 7 hours, 30 minutes of runtime, 230 meters of throw, 13,740 Candela. And you can see here, this does say at this point, if I click that back on, 1,500 lumens, and this still has 6 hours and 36 minutes of runtime. But now if I want to access the search mode, I have to use the Customizable button. This could be changed in programming how it functions, but by default, right here, a little half press, that's search mode, 3,000 lumens, and you'll see this is timing down with power remaining. And then when I get off of the button, as this is cooling down, this kind of gives you more and more time that you can use the light. But the reality is this will be limited due to the heat and how much this really does heat up as you use it. So you kind of need to be a little bit sparing with the higher modes, just because this will limit the overall runtime, and especially once you use the light at great length. But again, with that half press and that search mode, you're talking about 3,000 lumens. This has a 420 meter throw, 44,010 Candela. And then a deep press, that's going to be your lumen shield floodlight mode. And you'll see right now, because of the heat, that does not last long. So you'll notice just as soon as I press that down, it's pretty much done. So again, not a huge amount in the overall runtime, which is just a little bit disappointing. But theoretically, the 8,000 lumens, 380 meters of throw, 37,550 Candela. And so to me, this does not have all that substantial Candela. I usually really start to get excited over 50,000, and under 50,000, to me, it's a little bit underwhelming. And I believe that's because the actual reflectors on the inside are shaped and, definitely have that orange peel, which lends itself more to that floodlight versus spot. Again, to me, I would have really liked to see this with more of a spot versus the flood, because I think giving this, a good amount of Candela would have been super fun. I use my flashlights to illuminate things at distance, I really like to see detail. And the fact that, this will go up to 420 meters maxed out with the 3,000 search mode at 44,000 Candela, it's cool. I just think it could be a little bit more. And I think if they were able to kind of, just get rid of the orange peel on the inside, make this a little more spot than flood, in my opinion, it would have gone a long way. And I can already tell that the crowd is going to be upset at the fact that the higher modes really don't last all that long. In fact, what we're going to do, we're going to let this get all the way back up, dissipate the heat entirely, and then we're just going to run that lumen shield mode and see how long it lasts. So now with the meter fully timed out, getting on the customizable button, and I'm just going to hold this down. We'll do it so you can see. Let's watch that time down. So pressing it all the way in, deep press, full 8,000. Maybe 7 or 8 seconds. It is a significant amount of heat right away, and I can see why Nitecore does that, but I can just see people complaining. And to me, and the reason why I say Candela is king, it really doesn't need a ton of lumens to have significant punch. So less lumens, less heat, and longer run times. So to me, the more lumens I think is a miss. This would have been better with, more of a throw factor, higher Candela, and I really think it would have given customers exactly what they wanted. Now, in order to change the customizable button, very straightforward. Literally going to lean on the customizable button and then press your mode button. So here, pressing the customizable button and then the mode button, you can see that flashed, which at this point, deep press gives you that strobe. So now you go from the spotlight mode with the half press to the deep press being the strobe. So again, half press, deep press. And that's how you use the customizable button on the Nitecore EDC37. Now this is a pretty big scene for an EDC flashlight. However, with 8,000 lumens, we should get some pretty good punch. Now as I single press here, going to put this into the lowest mode, level 1, which is 15 lumens, and clicking on the light, beaming off into the distance, you are literally not going to see anything, but here, as I illuminate my hand, you can see that 15 lumens, nice and easy. Good for up-close tasks, the ability to read. It's not going to kill your vision, and I'm able to beam off maybe about 15 feet here and see things very clearly. And even a little further off into the distance on the left-hand side, even though you're not going to see it very clearly on camera right now, I am starting to illuminate my scene about 50 feet away. Now, another press here. This is going to be the level 2, 100 lumens. And now you can start to see on the left-hand shoreline here, starting to illuminate the trees, the water in the foreground. And again, even though the camera is not going to pick this up, I'm able to see all the way across. You can kind of see, if you look, about 150 feet away here with that level 2, again, 100 lumens, so a pretty good punch. Now another press here, level 3, 400 lumens. Now you're really starting to see that hot spot. Not a ton of light, but more than enough to really start to see. And you can see I'm beaming now towards the right-hand side, up into the trees. Again, about 100, maybe 125 feet away at that particular shoreline. As I go to the left, that's a little further away. That's maybe more like 150 feet. But coming up here to the closer shoreline on the right-hand side, that's about 125 feet. Now another press here, level 4, 1,500 lumens. I'm really starting to illuminate my scene. And down into the water, you can see that's actually casting a beam that you can now see into the water to the left, scrolling around to the right. You can see my breath. It's a cool night, really neat and eerie, very rainy, but the flashlight doing a nice job and punching way off into the distance. Now that far shoreline over there, probably closer to around 300 feet. So I'd say, right around 100 yards, 100 meters. You can see the grass in the foreground. Again, doing a real nice job illuminating way off into the distance and up into the trees. Now at this point, on my customizable button, I'm going to half press, and that is that full Candela punch. So this is really, and you can see that died off really quick. So a little half press there, it's already dying down. So unfortunately, I don't have a ton of battery, and once this starts to heat up, it's not the battery power, but it's the fact that this heats up, and internally, it just wants to turn itself off. So I don't get a ton in the way of that heavy punch. So I'm gonna sit here and wait for about a minute, get some of this heat dissipated, and hopefully at that point I can show you both the punch of that spotlight and then the lumen shield mode. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but let's give it a try. Again, a half press. That's the spot. That spot doing a nice job beaming off. We'll put a timer. Oh, it already kicked down. So you can see at this point, it's basically the best I can do. So that turns off real fast. Now the indicator on the LED basically saying power remaining, but that's not power. That's pretty much, due to the heat and its need to dissipate. So long press here, deep press. I mean, it's really limiting the overall capability of this light due to the actual heat and buildup. You can see if I deep press, it kind of spots the light down a bit, which is interesting because that's supposed to be the lumen shield mode. So it does kind of give you the difference between a flood and a spot, but at the same time, I'm not getting that full output. I can't say for sure exactly what it is because this does have that indicator telling me that it's got to basically cool down until it'll give me the full power and punch. So at this point, I can't really demonstrate that to you much more without this light completely cooling off. So it is a little bit of a letdown not having any more punch. Just a real quick demo inside because outside was not so successful. So here you can see level 1, 15 lumens. Level 2, 100 lumens. Now you can definitely see that centralized hotspot and then the spill off to the side. Level 3, 400 lumens. Really starting to light things up nicely. Level 4, 1500 lumens. And at this point, cycling back around. Half press here. That's going to be the spot mode. So again, half press to spot. That's 3000 lumens. Deep press, 8000 lumens for that lumen shield. Now, because I have not been running this, and really too much, it hasn't heated up that much, but I can start to feel the heat gathering in my hands. And the longer I use this, the more this is going to heat up until the point where it literally turns off. So if you want to use that spotlight, you really only get, 6 or 8 good seconds, and then you can see already it's dimming down. And at this point, I'm pretty much stuck. I can't use any of those high intensity modes. It automatically dims down. Deep press here, already right down. So you can see deep press dims down. Half press dims down. So at this point, I'm pretty much out of any of those higher intensity modes. I can pretty much just cycle between the main modes. So levels 1 through 4. All right, so now with the EDC37, I charged this overnight. I haven't used this flashlight at all just yet. And I'm picking up its quick heating capabilities. Now, I have a thermal camera over there taking a look at this. And I'm just going to lean on that button until this gets cherry red. And we'll see how quickly this really does heat up. And you can see now at this point, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's pretty much done. So that's with one blast. Now, obviously, this is coming back a little bit. We have that meter coming back just a little bit. So just going to start to abuse this just a little. Going to lean on it. If we just keep this going, keep pressing that button halfway down, trying to get this thing to really heat up. A little warm on the tip there. And compared to everything else in the room, we're going to start to see how hot this is in comparison. Now even at that, you can see how great of a job Nitecore has done at basically creating a situation where the entire rest of the flashlight is still cool. It's really just the head and that lens that gets super cherry red. And more than anything, you can see it's actually right around that bezel. The rest of it does tend to heat up just a little bit, but not nearly as much as the ring, right around that strike bezel. That's really what does seem to get the hottest, and then certainly on the sides and on the inside.
you can see that you do actually get a little bit of heat starting to develop behind the clip. That's probably where the battery is. I can't really say for sure, but I did find this to be just a little bit interesting.
And so all in all, there's no doubt that the EDC37 is a sweet flashlight. But I do personally believe that, in my opinion, if they were focused more on Candela than they were on lumens, I think we'd have the best situation, because you'd still get that sort of user satisfaction of the high output, yet at the same time, it wouldn't heat up nearly as much, and it wouldn't really cause a situation where, for most people, I think they're probably going to be frustrated at the lack of long-term burst. And I think when you want that burst, you really want it for a prolonged period of time, at least a minute. To me, if you could get to at least 30 seconds, it would be not that bad. But 8 seconds, and then once you start using it, I mean, you're down to like 5 seconds or 2 seconds or barely even a blip. So I want to love this light. I think there's so much here. I like the form factor. I like the button layout. I think everything about this, for the most part, works. It's just the lack of burst that can be a frustration. Now, all the other modes, really, really good. All the other modes, just about perfect. The spread, fantastic. The user capability, just to blip between them, it's nice. So for the general user, and for the most part, you're going to be fine. But bottom line is, if you are really counting on that lumen shield as a non-lethal self-defense, you only have 10 seconds of non-lethal self-defense. Is that enough? I don't think so. To me, I think you want a lot more than that. In my opinion, I want a lot more than that. So I would much rather far less lumens with far less heat and higher Candela. That's my opinion. And so there you have it, guys, the EDC37. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for following along. Thank you to the people at Nitecore who did provide this for review. Look in the description box below where you can find all of the relevant links. And if you like this content, do me a favor. Take a look at my Outer Limitless family of channels. Here on Outer Limitless Lights, we cover all the lighting needs, from EDC, headlamps, indoor, outdoor lighting, you name it. Outer Limitless blades, all the sharp and pointy things. Outer Limitless 2, which is the tactical and firearm side of things. And Outer Limitless, my primary channel, hiking, camping, backpacking, and EDC. So, all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.